right, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Judge Lal, and we are going to proceed with our state court calendar. It's called the Expedited Accusation Calendar, with cases in which individuals were recently arrested and booked at the Fulton County Jail. Soon after being booked in, the cases have been formally accused by the prosecutor, who is the Solicitor General of Fulton County. When I call each case, I will let you know what is the new case number, what are the charges that are being addressed in each case, as well as to set a bond and appoint counsel if necessary. Please remember that if you are a defendant charged with one or more misdemeanor offenses, you have a right to remain silent. Anything that you choose to say about the facts of your case during the course of this virtual proceeding that is not only being recorded and live streamed. If you choose to make any comments about your case, your statements can and will be used against you. You have a right to an attorney. If you cannot afford one or one is not available today, the Public Defender's Office will represent you, and we will begin. Let's see, courtroom 2, who do we have first?
Good afternoon, Judge Law. This is going to be position number 10, Miss Micaiah Lee.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Miss Micaiah Lee. All right. And she is being accused of battery from September 22nd, 2024. Miss Lee, you've been advised of your rights, and your attorney is going to be Mr. McLean. Any priors, Mr. Howard?
Second, on probation out of Douglas County as of March for simple battery.
That was Douglas County. Okay, thank you. And Ms. Desiano, what's the recommendation?
Good afternoon, Judge. State's recommendation is a $2,500 surety bond, no contact with the victim, stay away from the incident location, and also stay away from the victim's residence, which is 1201 Branley Drive in Conyers. That recommendation is based upon a big family dispute that happened on September 22nd, 2024. The victim is the defendant's mother-in-law. There were several people fighting at this location. However, as it relates to Miss Lee, she pepper sprayed her mother-in-law in the face, and the other perpetrators from the incident fled the scene prior to police arrival. We've been in touch with Miss Thompson today. She states that she's the mother-in-law. She confirmed the events in the warrant. She states that she wants no contact and wants her to stay away from her residence. She states that the incident location is a gas station. And Your Honor, I believe she's on the Zoom. If you could sound for her, thank you.
All right, incident location occurred at Brandy Street. That's where the mother-in-law lives?
No, Your Honor, the incident happened at 1685 Ralph David Abernathy Southwest, which...
Oh, I'm sorry, wrong question, Ms. Desiano. You said to stay away from Brandy Live. That's where the mother-in-law lives?
Yes, Your Honor. She's requesting a stay away from her residence, and that's the Brantley Drive.
Okay, so... Mr. McLean?
Your Honor, that Branley Drive in Conyers was listed as my client address on that public safety assessment report, but I'm sure she has other places to go. I don't think that's going to be a problem. We would ask the court to consider a signature bond. Your Honor, my client went to the 12th grade, South Cobb High School. She did have that one thing of probation in Douglas. Let's see, not that many years ago. She is pretty young, 25. Her jobs have been at Taco Mac and EDS Solution, which is groundskeeping in an apartment complex. And she's been doing those jobs simultaneously, so she's pretty industrious. Chick-fil-A before now. We've got her mail. Let's see. She can get mail through, really, she can mail through her mother, Ebony Johnson, for whom we have the phone number. It shouldn't be a problem. We would ask the court to consider. Thank you.
Ms. Desiano, do you know who's the alleged victim in her probation case from Douglas?
Your Honor, I have a note that it's a different victim. I didn't write down her specific name. I believe the initials were KA or something of that nature, but I did confirm it's not the same person.
And mother-in-law, okay, so I'm not going to inquire into that relationship. The bond's going to be set at $1,500. This is a surety bond. A signature bond, she doesn't qualify since she's already on active probation for a very recent conviction. No further contact with Ms. Thompson. To stay 200 yards away from 1201 Brandley Drive in Conyers, Georgia. If she's allowed a one-time visit to that location, she would need to get local police escort for that one-time visit to remove her belongings. And then within 30 days, she must update the court with her current mailing address. Her next court date is going to be, I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. Is it Miss Champion? What do we have for the next court date?
The SAP restate date is November the 7th.
All right. Her next court date is going to be November 7th. Thank you.
And Your Honor, Miss Thompson's on the line if you could sound for her.
Sarah Thompson, did you want to chime in for this case? All right, next case.
Next is going to be position number 11, Mr. Jaquavius Miles.
Jaquavius Miles is accused of theft by taking from August 23rd of this year under accusation 24 CR 7262G. Mr. Miles, you've been advised of your rights. Your attorney is Mr. McLean. Mr. Howard?
Fifth arrest on probation, theft by taking. Financial transaction card theft, financial transaction card fraud, 22 SC 183626. 2020.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Thank you. Ms. Desiano?
Your Honor, this incident took place on August 27th at a rooming house at 325 Sawtell Avenue. The victim is Cornelius Hale. He reported that he left the country, and when he returned, his flat screen TV had been taken from his bedroom and pawned at a local pawn shop for cash. The defendant was identified through the investigation as the person who took the TV. We're requesting a $2,000 surety bond, no contact, stay away from the incident location, no weapons, drugs, or alcohol. And if Your Honor can sound for Mr. Cornelius Hale.
Mr. Hill, are you on Zoom? This would be the time to chime in. All right, Mr. McLean?
Thank you, Your Honor. Sorry. My client is 28 years old. His mom lives locally in Snapfinger Woods Drive. His address, Central Church in Douglasville, is more or less local because it's just right up the road. Atlanta. That's another county. Your Honor, he's worked at Emory Hospital for 2 years as a patient person. He has 4 children. He asked the court to consider a signature bond for under the circumstances. There's a 32-inch flat screen TV, and his version of the facts differs from that of the prosecution.
All right. Bond is set at $1,500. This is a surety bond. No further contact with Cornelius Hill, and he'll need to stay away from the incident location. If he lives there, then he'll need to vacate and provide the court with a new address within 30 days. He's allowed a one-time visit to the location with a police officer to retrieve his belongings. Presently, if he does make bond, he is only to be released to the Forest Park Code. Thank you. Our next court date is November 7th.
Next, Your Honor, is going to be position number 1, Mr. DeMonte Bob.
This is Mr. DeMonte Bob, accused of simple assault and disorderly conduct. This is from the October 21st, 2024 incident, and his accusation is 24 CR 7251B. Mr. Bob, you've been advised of your rights, and your attorney is Mr. McLean. Any prior comment?
Mr. Cook.
Oh, Mr. Cook? There he is.
Yes, Your Honor.
Sorry.
Fifth arrest. I got history out of South Carolina, 2022 and 2023. Public disorderly conduct, 2020 assault and battery, malicious injury to property, personal property conviction. I think he might be homeless. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Miss Allen, good afternoon.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon. This is an incident that occurred on the 21st of October at about 4 p.m. At 100 Carnegia, C-A-R-N-E-G-I-A Way. The warrants in this case indicate that this was a moving incident, but it was all contained within MARTA property. The victim, Kevin Collier, reported that he'd been, while at work, harassed, followed around, and assaulted by the gentleman in front of you for a period of time during the day. He was struck multiple times in the neck and face with the defendant's closed fist. The defendant chased him, followed him, and threatened him verbally. And then tried to strike him repeatedly as he continued to follow him. The victim stayed on the scene after he brandished a weapon and actually stabbed Mr. Bob, I believe. And he was also arrested. He was on first appearance felony today. Mr. Bob does have felony convictions out of South Carolina for damage to property and felony level assault, as well as multiple arrests for disorderly conduct. This is his first arrest here in Georgia. As with most of the cases that occur on MARTA property, I'm hoping that there'll be some CCTV footage that's reviewed as a part of this investigation, seeing as this just happened. I guess we'll see. Both people were arrested. We'd asked for a $6,000 surety, Your Honor. The defendant has no known address, no ties to Georgia. This was an assault on a victim in a public place. We'd asked for no MARTA access, no contact with the victim. His name is Kelvin. Last name is Collier, and no drugs, alcohol, or weapons while on bond.
But they were both arrested.
They were. The gentleman in front of you was stabbed, but it looks like there's also a colorable self-defense claim, and so it looks like there needs to be some more investigation done.
Okay. And the other question I had was, never mind. Oh, I'm so sorry. Another question. I forgot the third count. Mr. Bob, is simple assault, disorderly conduct, and simple battery. So I guess two of the charges were added after the simple assault warrant. Mr. Cook, do you have a response?
Yes, Your Honor. This is a difficult case because we don't know enough about it. From what I can tell, Mr. Connor, the alleged victim, was arrested on an aggravated assault charge. And apparently did, in fact, well, accused of stabbing my client. I must say my Odyssey acted up a good bit today. I do have the pre-indictment number on Mr. Collier. My client tells me he was in Grady Hospital for 5 days and underwent surgery. I understand that Mr. Collier's position is self-defense, but that's pretty brutal. And I don't know anything about Mr. Collier's background. We would be asking, obviously, we have no objection and no further contact. Given how little we know about the case, and that is simple assault, we would be asking for a signature bond at whatever level the court deems appropriate.
Each count is going to be $250. His total bond is $750. It's a surety bond. I don't have enough on him with regards to community ties. And his next court date is November 7th. No further contact with Kevin Collier, and to stay away from the MARTA property in question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next case, please.
We're gonna go to ACDC, Your Honor.
All right. Deputy Francois, were you present when I was reading out the rights?
No, I wasn't, Judge, if you don't mind. Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. All right. Good afternoon for the folks at ACDC. My name is Judge Law. This is going to be an initial appearance calendar for cases that have been newly accused. They are misdemeanor offenses. So when I call each of your cases, please remember your two rights. The first one's the right to remain silent. Anything you choose to say during the course of this virtual proceeding, your statements can and will be used against you. Keep in mind that these proceedings are being recorded and live streamed. So highly recommend that if you want to have a conversation, only have it with the attorney with whom you spoke. Your other right is the right to an attorney. If you cannot afford one, one will be appointed to represent you. Today, the Public Defender's Office will be representing you if you do not have counsel. So who do we address first?
Number 13, Pitts.
All right. Ms. Vynisha Pitts is accused of theft of lost or mislaid property from October 23rd of this year under accusation 24 CR 7245E. Ms. Pitts, you've been advised of your rights, and your attorney is going to be Mr. Keith Cook. Any prize, Mr. Howard?
14, 2022, possession of drug-related objects. 2019, distribution of cocaine conviction. 2018, a vice charge with possession of drug-related objects conviction. 2020, battery DV conviction, and 2015, aggravated arson.
Thank you. Ms. Allen?
Thank you, Your Honor. This is an incident that occurred on the 23rd of October at around 400 Griffin Street, Northwest. The specific area where the theft is alleged to have occurred is an apartment complex at Oliver Street. Officers saw the defendant carrying 2 power saws and a hedge trimmer. When asked about it, she said she found them. The area nearby was canvassed, and that includes the apartment complex on Oliver Street. Police observed a white pickup truck, obviously related to maintenance work. They located the owner. It had power tools in it and yard equipment in it as well. He identified that items were missing from his truck, and then identified the items as his. Another one of his items that had been taken, a leaf blower, was located on a nearby porch there. So this young lady's charged with being in possession of items that she knew were not hers, and she was not trying to return them to their rightful owner. We'd be asking for $1,000 surety, Your Honor. No drugs, alcohol, or weapons, and to stay away from the apartment complex on Oliver Street. Thank you.
Mr. Cook?
Oh, it's mine, Your Honor.
Oh, sorry, Mr. McLean. So counsel McLean, all right?
Very good. Your Honor, my client is 31 years old, residentially challenged at the moment, but has mail address through her friend Jennifer at 671 Jet. We could get the zip code on that.
671 what? What was the address you gave?
TT, it's over 671 Jet is over, it's very near the jail. It's near the intersection of North Avenue and North Side.
Okay.
So that's her friend Jennifer. Your Honor, we would ask the court to consider a signature bond under the circumstances. It is simply a theft of misladen lost property, but one of those items from the truck ended up on somebody's porch. I don't know why. But she is residentially challenged, but can get her mail.
All right. Bond's going to be set at 500. It is a surety bond. Next court date is November 7th. She'll need to update the court with her current mailing address and to have no contact with, his name was Kevin Russell. Is that correct?
It's not I don't know that they know each other. And I don't know that he lives there, but yes, Your Honor, specifically.
Oh, Christopher Russell.
The gentleman who owned these items is Christopher Russell.
Christopher Russell, and to stay away from the entire apartment complex on Oliver Street in that location. Thank you. Next case, please.
Number 5, Phelps.
Carrie Folks accused of criminal trespass on October 23rd of this year. Her accusation is 24 CR 7255F. Ms. Folks, you've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is going to be both attorneys at there. Mr. Cook? All right.
Yes.
All right.
4 total. Oh, okay.
4 cycles, okay.
2017 trespass conviction. 2016 vice charge conviction. 2015 battery DV dismissed.
Ms. Desiano?
Your Honor, this incident took place on the 23rd at the Texaco at 2067 DeLoe Drive in East Point. The defendant was on the property after having received a criminal trespass warning on September 12th. And asked not to return. The state's requesting a signature bond through pretrial, stay away, no weapons, alcohol, or drugs while on bond. Thank you.
All right, can we verify that she has an address? Let me see. Is the Campbellton Road still a good mailing address, Mr. Cook?
Yeah, sure. Well, no, Your Honor, it is not. I have a new address for her.
All right, could you put it in the chat to
Yes.
one to Mr. Howard and then follow that up to Ms. Champion? Bond is set at $1,000, signature bond through pretrial services, level 1. She will need to report to pretrial once a month. She has to stay away from the Texaco gas station in question. If she returns to that location, her signature bond will be revoked. The next court date will be sent to her current mailing address. So if you don't have her new address, you'll need to come down to the clerk's office and provide that in writing. Thank you.
Hey, Cook, just send it to April so she can put on the bond order. I don't need it.
Okay.
I'll get it off of there.
Okay.
Thank you. Number 12, Pfeiffer.
Was it Pfeiffer? Oh, okay, Pfeiffer. Yeah. Mercedes Million Monique Pfeiffer, Pfeiffer. Her accusation is 24 CR 7249Y. Ms. Pfeiffer has 4 misdemeanor charges. They are willful obstruction of an officer, simple battery, disorderly conduct, and misdemeanor possession of marijuana. Ms. Pfeiffer, you've been advised of your rights, and your attorney is going to be Mr. McLean.
4 total, 2023 FTA, 2023 trespass NOLO, 2020 trespass conviction. A resident of Fort Wayne, Indiana.
Thank you. Ms. Allen?
Thank you, Your Honor. This is an incident that occurred around midnight on October the 23rd. The location is 1443 Vesta Avenue. That's apartment 2. Police were called by Mr. Willie Tremble. He's 63 years old. He reported that he'd allowed this defendant to stay with him. She's homeless. While in the kitchen cooking, he smelled that she was smoking marijuana. He talked to her about it, had previously told her he didn't want her smoking marijuana in his house, and asked her to leave. She said to him that he'd have to force her to leave, and she was going to do what she wanted to do, basically. She then balled up her fists and punched him. At that point, he got away from her and he called 911. On the scene, police made contact with the young lady in front of you. She was packing her things in a bedroom. She had multiple open bottles of alcohol in her presence, and she appeared to be under the influence. She admitted to punching the gentleman whose home she was staying in and said she did so because he was being stupid and asked her to leave. When she was told she was going to be arrested, she tried to flee on foot and then continued to resist, not wanting to put her handcuffs, the hands, and making her hands available for the handcuffs. Marijuana was found in her duffel bag. There's contradictory information on the citations. It says it was more than an ounce. However, in the warrant, it says it was less than an ounce. While inside the patrol vehicle and on the scene, she made threats against Mr. Willie Tremble and was in general opprobrious and disorderly on the scene. She also went to Grady as a result, I think, of complaining of body pain. We have spoken with the victim today. I believe he'll be joining us on Zoom, Mr. Tremble. He said that they'd known each other for about a week. He allowed her to spend the night. He confirmed what had happened and is requesting no contact and a stay away. Based on the lack of contact of community ties here, we'd ask for a $2,000 surety. Stay away from that location. Again, that's 1443 Vesta Avenue, apartment 2. No contact with Willie Tremble and no drugs, alcohol, or weapons while on bond. Thank you.
Mr. Trimble, if you're on Zoom, I don't see anyone by that name. You can unmute and start your video. All right. Mr. McLean?
Yeah, actually, my client does live in Atlanta. Her brother, she had that FTA before and is determined never to ever have an FTA. And so she uses her brother's address in Fort Wayne, Indiana. I looked it up on the Google Maps and saw that it was a single family dwelling on a residential street. And so she calls her brother and makes sure she gets her mail. Your Honor, she works at.
I'm sorry, Mr. McLean. I'm a little confused by that explanation. She uses his address to receive mail, but she lives in Atlanta, Georgia?
Right. She is residentially challenged, but occasionally has enough money to get a hotel room, and those are kind of expensive. And she lives in Atlanta and works at temporary services here. And so she's pretty industrious, working at People Ready and Staff Zone. She's applied at UPS. She's got lots of jobs, and her education is 11th grade. She's 25 years old. Her version of the facts will differ about why the dispute was going on, but she would ask the court to consider letting her have a signature bond, still use that address in Fort Wayne where her brother lives, and she would check him. Let's see. She has an ambition of finishing up, like I said, 11th grade education, but she has an ambition of getting that GED finished. She's inquired at Atlanta Tech, or I think it's on Metropolitan Parkway, and so she's going to get that finished up.
Okay.
Or to consider. Thank you.
On the obstruction charge, that's going to be 1,000 surety. The simple battery is a 500 surety. The disorderly conduct is a $500 signature bond through the jail, and the marijuana charge is a 500 signature bond through the jail. Her total bond is going to be 1,500. That's 2,500. That's a split bond. No further contact with Willie Tremble. She must stay away from the location at 1443, I think it was Vesta Avenue, that entire complex. No illegal drugs, no alcohol, and no weapons and firearms. The next court date is November 7th. Thank you.
Judge, I got one quick question. For the amount that she has to pay, how much is that?
It would be anywhere from 10 to 15% of $1,500.
$1,500. Okay, thank you.
Next, y'all, is gonna be position number 2. Mr. Quayle Childress, in courtroom 2.
Quaylen Childress is accused of 2 counts of battery. I'm sorry. Is that Quaylen Childress? Are you Mr. Childress?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. We good, Deputy?
Yeah, we good, Your Honor.
Okay. Mr. Childress is accused of 2 counts of battery from case number 24 CR 7252J. Incident date appears to be October 27th of this year. Mr. Childress, you've been advised of your rights, and your attorney is going to be Mr. Keith Cook. Any priors, Mr. Howard?
Third, 2024 FTA, 2019 driving without a valid license. NOLO.
The FTA is from where?
I don't know. I have to look it up.
I believe it's Hall County, Your Honor.
Hall County? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Your Honor, this incident actually happened in 2022. We are very close.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, it is 2022. You're correct.
At 220 Bill Kennedy Way in Atlanta. The victims in this case are a couple, Catherine and Tristan Robertson. It's my understanding that the incident location is an apartment complex. They advised they were walking their dog together. They saw an open door with no one around. So as a courtesy, they went and closed the door to secure the location. After the door was closed, the defendant came out irate because he was moving furniture and felt inconvenienced. The defendant then started walking toward Mrs. Robertson looking angry, and so her husband intervened between the defendant and his wife, and the defendant punched him in the face. The defendant's friends at that point tried to hold him back, but he broke free and then punched Mr. Robertson in the face again. The victims went to their apartment and then called 911. At some point later, Mrs. Robinson goes downstairs to get a picture of the defendant so he can be identified, and the defendant then kicked her in the leg and fled the scene, and Mrs. Robertson suffered a bruise on her leg from where she was kicked from that incident. Your Honor, we've been in touch with Mr. Robertson today. He confirmed the events in the warrant. He states that he and his wife don't know the defendant, never met him or saw him prior to this incident. They have since moved from the location and they obviously want no contact. Your Honor, at some point, he believed the defendant lived in Texas, and he was arrested a couple of days ago for DUI in Hall County and a failure to appear. So based on his recent failure to appear, Your Honor, we are asking for a $2,000 surety bond, no contact with the victims, no weapons, drugs, or alcohol, and if Your Honor can sound for Mr. and Mrs. Robertson.
Mr. and Miss Robertson, I don't have a Robertson on Zoom. Okay, thank you. Mr. Cook?
Yes, my client is 31 years old, owns his own trucking company. He has lived in Texas, but he's lived here on West Peachtree Street and has for some time. As far as the incident, my client tells me he has no recollection of this whatsoever. It does not ring a bell at all. So that's where we are. We would be asking for surety bond at whatever level the court deems appropriate, and of course, we have no objection to stay away, no further contact. He doesn't know them. I don't think any of the parties know where the other party resides or works, or nothing further.
This warrant for Mr. Childress. Just a minute, please. My goodness, come on. This alleged incident was October 27, 2022. The warrant was based on a photograph attached to the report, and the warrant was then sworn out on January 25th, 2023, about 2 months later. All right, I guess the state will have to match the picture to the individual. Mr. Childress, on each count, your bond is going to be $750. Your total bond is $1,500. It is a surety bond. However, once you make bond, you can only be released to the Hall County hold based upon your current DUI charge. You are to have no further contact with the Robertsons. Stay away from the incident location. No illegal drugs, alcohol, and weapons. Your next court date is going to be November 7th. Thank you. Next case, please.
Next is going to be position number 7, Mr. Hemmings.
This is State versus Mr. Kiel Hemmings, case number 24CR72578. Mr. Hemmings, you've been accused of criminal trespass from a October 24th, 2024 incident. And you've been advised of your rights, and your attorney is going to be Mr. Keith Cook.
First, jail is the recommendation.
Okay. Mr. Desiano?
Your Honor, I have second, actually. I show that he was arrested on the 15th of October for criminal trespass in DeKalb County.
Wow, okay. We'll go with that.
And Your Honor, this incident took place yesterday at the Bryant Buckhead Village Apartments, 400 Far Road, Northeast in Atlanta. The defendant was at the location after having received a criminal trespass warning on October 12th. He was seen on the property again in the package room yesterday. He was told to leave again. He did leave. The complex called the authorities to report the incident, and while they were on scene, the defendant came back for a third time. He was also seen on CCTV footage going through the residence hallways and pulling on door handles and things of that nature. We're requesting a $1,000 surety bond, Your Honor. Stay away, no weapons, drugs, or alcohol.
All right. Mr. Cook?
Your Honor, we have no objection to stay away. We would be seeking, given the rather sparse record, a signature bond through pretrial if necessary. But Well, we'd certainly be asking initially for jail, but certainly no worse than retrial.
What's his current address? Is it at that apartment complex?
Your Honor, he tells me at this point, he's on the street mainly. He's homeless. He's living in shelters from time to time and sometimes literally on the street.
Okay. A bond is set at 500. It is a surety bond. Next court date is November 7th. And to stay 200 yards away from the entire apartment complex at, what was it called? Bryant?
Bryant Buckhead Village Apartments.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Next case.
Next is going to be position number 8, Mr. Jonathan Jenkins.
Mr. Jonathan Jenkins is accused of the following 3 offenses from October 23rd. Is it 3 or 4?
It's 4, Your Honor.
Okay, no,
The second one's
the side mirrors is okay. So Mr. Jenkins is accused of 4 misdemeanor offenses stemming from a driving incident under accusation 24 CR 72588. The charges are driving under the influence of alcohol less safe, possession of an open alcohol container, failure to have a side mirror or mirrors on the vehicle, and failure to turn the headlights on when required. Mr. Jenkins, you have been advised of your rights, and your attorney is Mr. Cook. Any priors, Mr. Howard?
38, 2021 probation, 2014 domestic abuse battery conviction. As far as DUI convictions, 2019, 1995, 96, and 98. That's it.
So this is his 5th arrest, at least? Okay. Tessiana?
Your Honor, I believe it's actually his 6th arrest because he has a DUI arrest in 2011 out of Louisiana as well.
Okay, 6 DUI arrest. Okay.
Yes, Your Honor, this incident took place on October 23rd at Sylvan Road in East Point. Officers observed the defendant's vehicle driving without headlights. The officers initiated a traffic stop. When the officer approached the vehicle, the officer also noticed that the vehicle didn't have side mirrors. The defendant said that they had been off of his vehicle for weeks. The officer wrote a citation for the mirrors and the headlights, and upon having the defendant sign that citation, noticed a strong odor of alcohol on his breath, asked him to step out of the vehicle, searched the vehicle. He found 2 empty beers, 2 unopened beers, 1 half-empty beer that was still cold and spilling on the floorboard. And the defendant was placed under arrest. He did admit to drinking prior to driving, refused to answer questions about the beers that were in his vehicle. He refused fields and bodily fluids. The officer also noticed after he was placed under arrest that his eyes were glossy and the defendant was sweating profusely. Judge, this is 6th arrest for DUI. We're asking for a $3,000 DUI, surety bond on the DUI count 1, a signature bond on the remaining counts. We're also asking for no driving without a valid license. And if he does have a valid license, we are asking that the court order that he install an ignition interlock in his vehicle. We're also asking the defendant enroll in risk reduction course and submit himself to drug and alcohol screening. Nothing further.
All right, Mr. Cook?
Your Honor, my client is 53 years old. He works for Union Local 515 as a laborer and has for 2 years. His income is fairly modest. We understand the record. He does not have much in the way of an income or savings. We would hope the interlock and the risk reduction could be left post-conviction if that in fact occurs. That's generally part of a conviction. We would just simply be asking for the lowest surety bond the court deems appropriate.
Okay. On the DUI, it's going to be a $3,000 surety bond. On the possession of an open alcohol container, it's going to be a $2,000 surety bond. On the failure to have side mirrors and failure to put on the headlights, each is going to be $1,000 signature bond through pretrial services, level 3. No alcohol consumption, no illegal drugs, no weapons, and no firearms, and absolutely no driving After his license will be suspended within 30 days of his arrest date. I doubt his license privileges will be reinstated by an ALS appeal, but if it is, then he would only be allowed to be drive according to the decision by an administrative judge, but absolutely no driving within 30 days. Let me see. Oh, and the other thing I want to mention is that he may be a candidate for DUI court. So that's something, Mr. Cook, that he could perhaps look at. Once he bond, his next court, once he makes bond, he's required to report to pretrial once a week. And pretrial is required to implement random screens for alcohol and or illegal drugs. And if he fails a single screen, pretrial is authorized to revoke the bond and for him to be arrested to address this bond violation. Thank you. Next
Yeah.
court, November
What
7th.
what was the bond amount for the open alcohol container?
2,000. So he's got a $7,000 split bond, 5,000 is surety, and the last two counts is 2,000 signature bond through pretrial level 3. Random screens for alcohol and no driving after 30 days.
Thank you.
Mhm.
You can do it. Back one. Go back to the back end. Next, y'all, is gonna be position number 3, Mr. Raphael Davis.
This is Raphael Quinney Davis, accused of theft by deception from September 17th of this year, accusation 24 CR 7253F. Mr. Davis, you've been advised of your rights, and your attorney is Mr. Cook. Any priors?
35. Last arrest was last week for obstruction. He got 2 probation holds. On probation for one case, 19 SC 171163. 19 SC 171164, his CWAC. 2021 terrorist threats conviction, 2021, 2019 probation. 2019 failure with the CWAC, that was a conviction. 2016 forgery in the 3rd degree felony obstruction conviction. 2015 obstruction conviction. And 2 holds, that's all.
Thank you. Ms. Desiano?
Your Honor, this incident happened September 17th at the Western Union check cash place at 5015 Old National Highway. The defendant entered the location and cashed a money order for $810 that he had already mobile deposited into his bank account. So essentially he was paid twice for one money order. The defendant was then contacted by Western Union and on September 26th and asked to return the money since he had already gotten paid. And the defendant apparently told them that he was not bringing the money back and he needed to stop calling them. Your Honor, we're requesting a $1,000 surety bond to stay away from all Western Unions, no weapons, drugs, or alcohol.
Mr. Cook?
Your Honor, given the circumstances, we would not object to the, he first denies the allegations in the warrant. I realize this is not a trial. He said it was simply a misunderstanding, but we would not object to the recommendation by the state.
All right. I saw Mr. Davis's hand go up, so I'm assuming he's going to exercise his right to remain silent. Correct, Mr. Davis?
Yes, ma'am. I can always wait to adjudicate my case with my new counsel at further court dates. I'm gonna let the state stick with their side, and then I can present my case. When time's in, because this is just for bond and stuff like that. I don't have anything to say. I'm gonna let them stick with that. See how that works for them.
Bond is set at 1,500. It is a surety bond. Once Mr. Davis makes bond, he can't be released until his probation holds are resolved. To stay away from Western Union offices and no illegal drugs and alcohol. Thank you. Next court date is November 7th.
Go to the back one. Next, y'all, is gonna be, position number 4, Mr. Emmanuel Dix.
Okay.
Back row.
Mr. Emmanuel Dix is accused of simple battery, family violence, and hindering a person from making an emergency phone call. Incident date is September 28th of this year. Mr. Dix, you've been advised of your rights, and your attorney is Mr. Cook. Any priors?
14. 2016 battery DV cruelty in the third. It was dismissed. 2014-15 failed to appear. All the other previous violent arrests were dismissed from what I
All right. Thank you. Ms. Bessiano?
Your Honor, this incident took place on September 28th. The officers responded to 961 DeSoto Street regarding a domestic. Victim is Natasha Duffy. She stated to police that she and the defendant were arguing. She told him to leave. He would not. She picked up the phone to call 911, and he grabbed her phone and threw it on the ground, and then grabbed her and held her back from calling 911. At some point, she was able to break free. The victim actually went and got a knife at that point and went to her bedroom to separate herself. The defendant then followed her into the bedroom and charged at her again, and the defendant was stabbed. There was a witness to this altercation who corroborated the victim's version of events. She, of course, was not charged. This was clearly a self-defense claim. The defendant was hospitalized. We've been in touch with Miss Duffy today. I believe she's also on the Zoom. She states that she and the defendant are no longer in a relationship, and they no longer live together at the incident location, and they have no children. She confirmed the events in the warrant. She states that this is not the first time the defendant has been violent towards her, hence why she reacted the way that she did. She says this is the first time that police have ever been involved between her relationship with him. Of course, he does have history. She stated that after the defendant was released from the hospital, he came to the residence and got his belongings, and she has not seen or spoken to him since. She wants no contact and would like for him to stay away. Your Honor, he has 5 prior arrests for battery. Some of those arrests include violating a family protection order, cruelty to children, their family violence. I understand they've been dismissed, but there's certainly a concern for the victim's safety here, given the arrest history and her statements that this has happened before. We're requesting a $1,500 surety bond on each count. No contact with Ms. Duffy, stay away from her residence, family violence intervention program, no weapons, drugs, or alcohol. And if Your Honor can sound for Ms. Duffy.
Ms. Natasha Duffy, if you'd like to contribute to the proceedings, you will need to unmute and start your video. All right then, Mr. Cook.
Yes, Your Honor. My client is 39 years old. He has worked for the last year as a line cook in local restaurants. His income is quite modest. We understand the arrest history, but all of them have been dismissed. Something's going on there. We would be seeking a signature bond through pretrial services. We have no problem with any kind of stay away or no further contact. We would object to intervention program at this point.
Mm-hmm. On the simple battery, family violence is $2,500. The obstructing a person from making a phone call is $1,500. The total bond is $4,000. It's a signature bond through pretrial services level 2, which means, Mr. Dix, you can sign up for your bond, but you'll have to report to pretrial twice a month. You are to have no further contact with Natasha Duffy. You are to stay 200 yards away from her and not communicate with her in any way, form, or manner. You're also to stay away from 961 DeSoto Street in Northwest Atlanta. Within 30 days of being released, you must update the court with your current mailing address, and you're also to enroll in a domestic violence intervention program. You must show proof to the pretrial officer that you have enrolled in those classes and that you will attend all 26 classes without skipping any of the weeks at your own expense. No illegal drugs, no alcohol, and definitely no weapons and firearms. Thank you.
Next is gonna be position number 6, Mr. William Gibson.
Mr. Gibson's accusation is 24 CR 7256J. He's been accused of battery, family violence, and cruelty in the third degree from October 3rd, 2024. Mr. Gibson, you've been advised of your rights, and your current attorney is going to be Mr. Keith Cook. Yes, Mr. Howard?
12, 2021 suspended license, no low, 2016 FTA. That's it.
Okay. Ms. Desiano?
Your Honor, this incident took place on October 3rd, incident location 1363 Elizabeth Avenue Southwest. The victim is Kiana Tench. She advised that her child's father, she and her child's father were arguing. It escalated. He pepper sprayed her in the face. The defendant fled the scene when the victim told him she was calling 911. The parties have 2 children, a 5-month-old and a 2-year-old, and the 2-year-old initials ED was present for this altercation. We're requesting a signature bond through pretrial, no contact with Ms. Tench, stay away from the incident location, family violence intervention program, no weapons, drugs, or alcohol. We have not been in touch with Ms. Tench today, Your Honor, if you can sound, although I don't believe we have anyone else on the line.
Ms. Kiana Tinch. I see your hand up, sir. I'll address you shortly. Kiana Tinch, someone's connecting to audio, but I don't know who that is. Okay, Mr. Cook, anything to add?
Your Honor, my client tells me that Ms. Tench no longer lives at the address, so we would like the opportunity for him to go back with law enforcement to gather belongings or to verify whether she lives there. If she does not, that he be allowed to reside there.
Okay. All right, I don't see Ms. Tinch. Mr. Gibson, as I indicated, you have a right to remain silent. Anything you choose to say can and will be used against you. Has your attorney already told me what you wanted to say?
Yes, I live there, nobody else lives there. That's all I got to say.
Okay. On the battery family violence, the bond is going to be set at $3,500. On the cruelty is $1,500. This is a total of a $5,000 signature bond through pretrial services level 2. Mr. Gibson, you are to have no further contact with Kiana Tinch. You're to stay 200 yards away from her and not communicate with her in any way, form, or manner. If you wish to have joint visitation and custody of the child or children that you share with her, you would need to file a separate legitimation action and obtain a court order to obtain joint visitation and custody with regards to any children that you share with her.
Yes, ma'am.
Within 30 days of being released, you are to enroll in a domestic violence intervention program, and you are to attend all 26 weeks of those classes at your expense and show proof of that to pretrial. You report to pretrial twice a month. You are, as I said, you can return to 1363 Elizabeth Avenue, Southwest Atlanta. Your first visit must be with a police officer. Once
Yes,
the police officer verifies that the property is not occupied by Kiana Tinch, then you may return to that location. Otherwise, you're to stay away from the location and update the court with your new mailing address within 30 days.
yes, ma'am.
No illegal drug consumption, no alcohol consumption, and you are to surrender all firearms and any weapons, including pepper sprays or tasers, that you possess to the police for destruction. You're not allowed to own any weapons and any firearms until further order of the court.
Okay. Can I ask you one question, Judge?
Mr. Cook?
Yeah, Mr. Gibson, if it's about just the mechanics of the bond, nothing regarding the case. No.
No, it's just I need to try to get home and feed the animals quick as I can get signed out.
Well, you're going to you've got a signature bond. They'll be processing you out immediately following the hearing. Now, that doesn't mean to say you'll get out immediately. It takes a while.
That's why I was asking the judge.
It takes about 24 hours to release you.
Okay.
Thank you. Next case, please.
Next is gonna be position number 9, Mr. Chad Johnson.
How you doing, y'all?
Fine, thank you. Mr. Chad Johnson's accused of battery family violence from November 4th, 2023. His accusation is 24 CR 7263D. Mr. Johnson, you've been advised of your rights. Your attorney is Mr. McLean. Any priors, Mr. Howard?
7, 2014, contributing to the delinquency of a minor. Conviction, 2010 FTA, 2010 ag assault, dismissed.
Ms. Desiano?
Your Honor, this incident took place November 4th of 2023. Incident location is 1345 Donnelly Avenue, Unit C8. The victim is Sophia Cousin Hassan. She told police that her boyfriend that she lives with punched her in the face multiple times, causing her to fall to the floor after she tried to break up with him and then drug her across the floor. The victim had a laceration to her face that did require stitches. We've not been in touch with her today. We are requesting a signature bond through pretrial, no contact, stay away, family violence intervention program. If you're not inclined to do FIB at this point, then we'd ask for anger awareness, no weapons, drugs, or alcohol. And if Your Honor can sound for Miss Cousin Hassan.
Ms. Sophia Hassan is not on Zoom. Mr. McLean?
We would ask Your Honor to go with the signature bond and the anger awareness, Your Honor. Thank you.
He doesn't live at that Donnelly Hallwell because I see a St. Michael Avenue in East Point. Is that correct?
Well, that's where I stay now.
Okay.
I've been staying for a whole year now.
Oh, good. Okay. So the battery family violence is going to be a 2,500 signature bond through pretrial services, and that's going to be a level 1. No contact with Sophia Hassan, and no illegal drugs, no alcohol, no weapons. You report to pretrial once a month. You may be subject to random screens for alcohol and or drugs. Also, you're not allowed to own or possess any weapons and firearms. I'm going to require you to do the anger awareness program that's administered by pretrial, and you are to report to pretrial until further order of the court. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is going to be position number 14, Mr. Lenoir Rice.
Okay. State versus Lenoir Rice, accusation 24 CR 7250C. Mr. Rice is accused of simple battery, family violence, and theft by taking from a December 25th, 2022 incident. Mr. Rice, you've been advised of your rights, and Mr. McLean will be your attorney. Any priors, Mr. Howard?
9, open ag battery out of Cobb. Open possession of a firearm, trespass out of DeKalb. Last arrest was on the 10th of this month for trespass. 2023 probation. 2019 parole. 2019 theft by receiving trespass conviction. And a 2016 robbery first offender.
Ms. Allen?
Thank you, Your Honor. This case did take place in December of 2022. I did see in the criminal history for this gentleman that in Oregon and California in 2023, he was picked up as a fugitive. These warrants have been active for a period of time. Police were called on the 25th of December, 2022 at 11 p.m. to 4555 Washington Road in South Fulton. There, the victim, her name is Jamie Smith. She was the defendant's spouse at the time. She reported that after a verbal altercation or during a verbal altercation, her husband struck her in the head with his fist. He had accused her of infidelity. He also grabbed her phone and took it with him when he fled. A warrant was obtained on the 26th of December, 2022, and it has been outstanding. We did speak to the victim, Mrs. Smith. She reported she and the defendant are no longer living together and they share no children. She is not the victim in his 2023 Cobb aggravated battery and battery case. But I can't figure out who is at this point. She says that they are in the process of getting a divorce. She also said that the defendant grabbed her by her neck and tried to strangle her during this incident. She was requesting no contact and for him to stay away from her address. That's 2767 Treadway Drive. We're asking for a $2,000 surety, Your Honor, at least. Absolutely no contact with the victim in this case, Mrs. Jamie Smith. No drugs, alcohol, or weapons while on bond. Thank you.
Mr. McLean?
Your Honor, his address is listed as being a Fireside Lane address in College Park, so there should be no problem in staying away from the other address. He for Tyson Chicken, or a contractor for Tyson Chicken, over the road truck driver delivering the chickens. 26 years old, went to Frederick Douglass High School, and is simply working. I did hear the arrest record, conviction record. We would ask the court to consider a signature bond on this case, primarily because it's from December 2022, and because we do point out that it is a simple battery case, definitely violent. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Rice?
Continuously incarcerated for like 14 months now. And I just got acquitted of aggravated battery in Clark County. Like, my mom got stage 1 breast cancer. I'd really like to go home.
Understood. On simple battery, it's going to be 1,000. On the theft by taking, it's going to be 500. This is a $1,500 surety bond. I don't have any indication that your open cases in Cobb and DeKalb and your other case have been resolved. So presently, no further contact with Jamie Smith, to stay away from her residence and wherever she's physically located. No illegal drugs, no alcohol, and definitely you're not allowed to own any firearms. Next court date is November 7.
Next is going to be position number 15, Mr. Trenton White.
Yeah, ma'am.
Come on.
All right.
Your Honor, give him some time to get to the chair.
No rush. This is State versus Trenton White. Mr. White is accused of criminal trespass from October 19th, 2024. Mr. White, your case number is 24CR7259Y. You have been advised of your rights, and your attorney is Mr. McLean. Any priors?
2014 DUI, suspended license, suspended registration. Most of his history is DUI, suspensions, and drugs.
All right. Miss Allen?
Your Honor, this is an incident from the 19th of October. This is actually a bind-over case from Union City. The location is 4745 Jonesboro Road. That's a quick trip. On the date, the 19th of October, the manager of the store made a police report noting that the defendant was there on the property and that he'd previously been criminally trespassed in July the 17th specifically. He was arrested, Your Honor. He already has $1,000 surety. We would just ask that that remain in place and that he be ordered to stay away from that location and have no drugs, alcohol, or weapons.
All right. Mr. McLean, does your client have a good address?
Your Honor, the Raymond Drive and address may be correct. I'm not sure. Really, I think he does not sleep there. He does get in touch with his mother occasionally, Shirley White. He is residentially challenged at this time. I'm going to have a social worker talk to him. And if Your Honor releases him on a signature bond, I'm having him come by our office to meet with the social worker.
Mr. White, your bond is going to be $2,000. It's going to be a signature bond through the jail. After you're released, you're required to go speak to the public defender so that they can move forward with your case. In the meantime, if you return to the Quick Trip gas station at 4755 Jonesboro Road, you will be arrested again, and your signature bond will be revoked and converted to a cash bond only. Thank you.
You go. We'll sit right here in front of you. Just sit down. Come on. Next is gonna be position number 16, Mr. Cortez Williams.
This is 24 CR 7261B. Mr. Cortez Williams is accused of giving false information to an officer, misdemeanor possession of marijuana, and giving a false name to an officer. Okay, Mr. Williams, you've been advised of your rights, and your attorney is going to be Mr. McLean. Any priors, Mr. Howard?
9th. On probation, participation in criminal street gang activity, armed robbery. That's 16 SC 141622. Got an open case, possession of a firearm by convicted felon, obstruction, 24 PI 003535. Open possession of a firearm by convicted felon, possession of marijuana, theft by receiving. It's 24 SC 005028. And has a probation hold.
Thank you. Ms. Allen?
Thank you, Your Honor. This is an incident from October the 24th. Police were patrolling in the area of Dodson Drive in East Point. There they saw at specifically 3208 Dodson Drive. It's a park called Sykes Park, Sykes Park. They made contact with a driver of a car that was parked there with out-of-state tags. Her name was Alexis Tovar. She reported that she'd just picked up the defendant at a gas station and that they were sitting in her car at the park talking. When the defendant was asked for his identification, he said he didn't have any ID, and then he gave 2 separate names that were false to law enforcement, Devontae Hayes and Kyron Hakeem. He was then put into custody once he was identified and seen to have no active warrants, but he has a probation matter, and he was placed under arrest, Your Honor. I would note that his May 2016-2024 case is open. That's a possession of a firearm case. It's a PI case, as well as an April 2024 case, possession of a firearm and obstruction. He's got the armed robbery from 2016 that is still open. He's under probation in that case. And before these incidences, they'd already filed a revocation matter. So he's got a few different issues he's dealing with. Based on the criminal history, Your Honor, we'd ask for a $2,000 surety, no drugs, alcohol, or weapons, and stay away from that location. Again, that's Sykes Park, Sykes, 3208 Dodson Drive. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. McLean?
Your Honor, my client is 25. He did have that probation matter going on. He will be talking with his probation officer, obviously, about whether or not there are going to be any consequences there. But he would ask the court to consider a signature bond, primarily because this is 2 counts of the false information and the other charge. He will have no problem staying away from the location because it is a park. His address is shown as Stone Road in East Point, and that is correct. He does get mail service there. He has relatives and phone numbers that are correct. So we'd ask the court to consider a signature bond. Thank you.
So he does have a probation hold by Judge Lethridge. And on the giving false information is 500. On the misdemeanor possession of marijuana, that's 100, and giving false name is 500. This is a 1100 cash bond only. Stay away from Sykes Park, and unfortunately, he can't be released due to the probation hold. Thank you. I think, were there any other cases, Deputy?
That's it.
All right. Just to go over the calendar with the attorneys, position number 1 is going to be a $750 surety. Position 2 is a $1,500 surety. Position 3 is a $1,500 surety. Position 4 is a $4,000 surety bond. Oh, excuse me, it's a split bond.
What number you on?
It was a $4,000 signature bond through level 2. Excuse me. Phillips was a $1,000 signature bond through pretrial level 1. Position 6, Gibson, that is a $5,000 signature bond through pretrial level 2. 7, Hemmings is a 500 surety. 6, Jenkins that was a split bond, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
Yes.
3, 4, 5 is surety, and 2,000 is signature bond pretrial. Okay, so that's a $7,000 split. Position 9 is a 2,500 signature bond through pretrial. 10 is a 1,500 surety. 11, Miles is a $1,500 surety bond released to Forest Park only. Position 12, Pfeiffer, is a 2,500 split bond. Position 13 is a 500 surety. Position 14, Rice, is a $1,500 surety. That was 14, yeah. Position 15, White, is a 2,000 signature bond through the jail, and 16 is a 1,100 cash bond only. All right, folks. Any questions? Any corrections? We good?
Are you on for tomorrow?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes. Let me check. I believe so. I may be wrong. I'm not sure. Okay. All right, everyone. Till then, I may see you tomorrow. I may not. Okay. Thank you. Y'all have a good Friday. Bye-bye.